Road, coming to you live from the Lake of the Ozarks. Martin Kilquin with you here till 12 noon, and our Issues in Education Roundtable takes us to the Lodge of the Four Seasons. It is the 2016 Missouri Association of School Administrators Spring Conference here at the Lodge. We'll be talking about all things education. I know we've gotten a lot of great feedback over the last year doing these occasional roundtables, discussing things in the classroom. And even if you don't have kids anymore that are at the age that they're in school, you want those kids that are in school to be bright, and they are the future, which sounds cliche, but it's true. And as always, Dennis Young is our host. He's the president and CEO at Ittner Architects, and they're the brains behind Issues in Education. This was their idea. Dennis, thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for coming to the lake.
Yeah, we're here at the lake, but we're sitting in a conference room. We're wearing headsets. We got the wrong memo. We're at the lake. We should be out on boats, right?
You can barely see the lake.
Yeah, we're busy. Let's start with the idea, Issues in Education, the fact that Ittner got behind this. How did that all evolve?
Well, everything we do is about designing schools. And there's nothing more important than our kids' future and our economy than really quality education. So to really create a forum for educational leaders is what Issues in Education is all about. They have a chance to really speak with the depth of expertise that they have on all subject matters, from technology to security to curriculum and all the rest. So I think it's really important that there is a credible forum for them to share their knowledge, and it's Issues in Education.
How much of what you do with Ittner is based on feedback? And you're at the conference here, so you have access to all these superintendents. And I would think each area's need or focus is a little different if you're rural versus the city.
Very much so. What I think overall across the state, what they're trying to do is provide skills necessary for students to compete in the 21st century. So, the traditional classroom is fading very quickly. It's all about collaboration, project-based learning, and the STEM buildings that we're doing, the early childhood classrooms. And it also transcends from public K through 12 into healthcare, in terms of pediatric dental, into governmental, in terms of Job Corps training centers. So it's all about creating the kinds of skills necessary to compete in the global economy.
And as always, we have a esteemed panel where we can go through all the different issues. But Dennis, first off, just thanks for having it. I have not been to the lake in years, so you gave me an excuse to come down here and play a little hooky from St. Louis. And by the way, the sun is out at the lake. I don't know what it's doing right now in St. Louis. The sun is out. It looks great. It's a beautiful spring day. And joining us also, Roger Kurtz. He's the executive director of MASA, the Missouri Association of School Administrators. Also, Dr. Doug Heider, who is the associate executive director for MASA. And we welcome them to the conversation here. And Roger, for the folks out there driving around in their cars, what is the MASA? Let's keep it simple.
Okay, well, first of all, welcome to our conference. Glad to have you here at the lake. The Missouri Association of School Administrators is an organization of public school administrators. They join. We're not a government agency. We're a nonprofit organization. Our members join by choice, and we provide them with leadership development opportunities. We try to make our superintendents better leaders, try to support them in any way they can, advocate for them, and basically serve the school administrators around the state of Missouri.
And how many districts are we talking? When people hear about they have their neighborhood school district statewide, how many different districts are there?
Well, in the state of Missouri, we have approximately 520 school districts, and they range in size, a large number of them very small, less than 1,000 students. So we have a wide variety of districts that we deal with.
And so you're talking about different needs all the time. What will take place at the conference? What gets done here?
Well, we have a variety of breakout sessions, from law to personnel to finance to almost any aspect of school administration that you would deal with. And we try to have that variety so that each person can choose and pick what best fits their need.
And we were talking off air about the flow. So a school board is elected, and then the school board chooses superintendents.
Yes.
And then a collection of superintendents pick you guys to kind of oversee things. So what's your role in terms of the support I mean, essentially it's a support system with MASA.
You know, I usually tell my kids if I'm not in a meeting, I'm planning one. And so we pull together superintendents from around the state to work on issues, education issues from time to time. We're a strong advocate in the Missouri Capitol for education issues. We keep them informed, and that's one of the big jobs that we do, is we keep them informed of any pending legislation that's out there that might impact them in their jobs or in their school districts. So that's a big part of what we do at MASA.
And it is the number one issue that you would face, whether you're in northwestern part of the state or the southeastern part of the state, funding. Is that still number one that you guys hear?
Well, you know, that is a major issue that we are always in tune with, but I think it goes a lot farther than that right now. We're spending a lot of time in this organization talking about school accreditation and how we accredit school districts, what makes a really good school district, and how we can tell that. And then we're also spending time talking about assessments and tests and what kind of tests we're going to give kids, and trying to figure out what is the best method for assessing students as they progress through the school. And some of your later guests are going to be talking about that specifically, but we spend an awful lot of time on issues other than just finance, but we do keep a very close eye on school finance.
And Doug, how are we doing as a state? I'm sure there's numbers you guys kind of focus on all the time, and we want our kids to be the brightest, and there is a little bit of a competitive nature, I would think, when you look at numbers versus kids from the East Coast, West Coast. Do we have a gauge or a sense how we're doing in Missouri?
We do. There are several assessments that we look at. Of course, federal law today probably plays a bigger part. The new reauthorization, which is called ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, governs the United States. We as a state play a part in that. So there's a lot of comparisons through the National Assessment for Educational Progress, which is a national test that's taken, and other measures. So you bet, in a global society, we have to take a strong look at not only our state and district, but throughout the nation.
And how are we doing okay? I mean,
we're doing well. Several years ago, there were some correlational studies done regarding the tenacity, if you would put it that way, of our tests, and we ranked very high in the country, top 5, in how difficult we were making those standards for our students. We want to set high marks, and we think we're doing very well with our students in Missouri.
Dr. Doug Heider is the Associate Executive Director with the MASA, the Missouri Association of School Administrators. We also have Roger Kurtz, Executive Director, and Dennis Young, President and CEO, Ittner Architects. Roger, how much of what they're doing at Ittner is important to the schools themselves and kind of the evolving classroom, and how much feedback should there be with the architects saying, you guys don't just build it the way we did in the 50s where it looks beautiful, a big brick building, but that doesn't work anymore.
No, not at all. And it is an evolving experience trying to build a building these days. And superintendents are educators. They were teachers, and they were, in most cases, principals, and then they ascend to the position of superintendent. And they're not experts in building facilities, and that's where they rely on real experts like Ittner to come in and help them assess what their needs are and how they're going to meet those needs with their facilities. And so it is a true partnership when a school district undertakes a building project to get with a quality architect like Ittner that has the experience and knowledge to help that school district design a facility that will work for them, not for just a few years, because as you know, school buildings last a long time, and they've got to be there. Many of them are 50, 60 years at least.
Yeah, quite a few. What's really challenging about that is we're trying to look to the future. I guess one teacher once said, well, it's like skeet shooting. You're trying to aim way ahead,
right.
And technology's changing. How you acquire knowledge is changing. The role of the teacher is changing. And different communities are at different stages in that progress of trying to develop and change. So when we design a school, it has to be very flexible, very adaptable, trying to anticipate, well, for instance, say 5 years ago, computer labs were a very key part. Computer labs are not a key part of any plan.
Right, you can almost visualize kids
Yeah.
sitting at the desktop,
Yeah.
the giant TV monitor type
Not
thing.
anymore.
Now they're sitting
Not
in a
anymore.
beanbag chair with a laptop.
Yeah, and the way they learn is not just individually, they're in small groups. And so we're really creating those spaces, not just in the classroom, but throughout the school where kids can really learn at their own pace on topics that are most interested to them. And teachers are really a facilitator in that process, not someone that is at the front of the room answering questions, but asking questions and letting the students go acquire that knowledge.
How much of the work now isn't just new schools, because we talked about funding. Sometimes that the money isn't there. We'd all love brand new schools, but going in and tweaking what's already there or changing a couple of the labs. And
Oh, very much. You know, it's interesting when you go into an existing school and you're trying to be creative in future planning, you got to have a paradigm shift. You know, you see all the existing walls and you say, well, we're going to have to think about this school a little differently. And then, so what that means is sometimes the gymnasium, which is very old, becomes the future media center. And, you know, you go through the school very creatively and you just give a whole new, I call it a rebirth to a school.
before we let you go, Doug and Roger, what about the evolving curriculum, which reflects the classroom and the design and the setup, but how much of that is changes over the years? Okay, we all need to know algebra and history and math, but all of a sudden now it's technology and thinking globally. Is it, in your roles too, is that something you discuss with the administrators?
We do all the time. Our strategic plan is lead, develop, support. And talking about 21st century skills, we had a great session yesterday enlightening us about thinking, are we looking, as he talked about earlier, ahead and having those skills of global citizenship and creative thinking and collaborative teamwork and all of those things and creating those spaces that allow kids to do that. We can't continue to have an agrarian school system like we've had for so many years.
Yeah.
So a lot of improvements, a lot of changes, and we've got to be very goal-oriented toward the future.
And, you know, along those lines, what's interesting when we're working with teachers, they don't know how far they need to stretch. And, of course, the board and the principals and the superintendent needs to kind of be behind them. But when we're working with the teachers, it's all about listening, inspiring, and then transforming. And it begins with them. It begins with that dialogue, and that's what kind of directs us on how to design a school for them.
You know, just a couple years ago at this conference, we spent a lot of time talking about acquiring technology. Well, at this conference, it's not about acquiring technology and how to get that in the classroom. It's how to use that to get your kids moving forward in 21st century. So it's changed quite a little bit.
Quite a bit. So it really is a collaborative effort on everybody's part to plan and design a school.
And we're going to talk assessment.